Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, Peak Performance Coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. As always, I am your host, Brian Bosley, and I just want to take a few seconds here to thank every one of you, all of my beautiful guests, and all of you at the Bamboo Pack subscribers for making this podcast so successful and continuing to grow. Every week I share the analytics. We're just across the world now. There's so many countries and states or countries and continents and states and cities joining on a consistent basis. I do want to take a moment to welcome the subscribers who came in yesterday from Belgium. Welcome. Please make sure you send a heart letter and share with us how you found us and what the podcast means to you. All right. Today we want to read a quick heart letter that came in I think 3 or 4 weeks ago. I just pulled it up today from a fellow Bamboo Pack member, subscriber. He said, "Your podcast and your guest are an inspiration to me and all who are following you. Please keep up the strong work. Keep going and doing what you do." So you, Bamboo Pack member, thank you so very much. That means the world to me. All right, without further ado, let's get started. We have a really fun guest on here today. We have a guest that we mirror each other a lot. It's so interesting. He actually started his podcast on the exact same day we started the Bamboo Lab podcast. We are in the same line of business. He's got some amazing content, amazing material out there, and he's got some books that we're going to talk about today. We've got Joe Mull on today. Joe is the author of 3 books, including No More Team Drama and the forthcoming Employalty, How to Ignite Commitment and Keep Top Talent in the New Age of Work. Now, Bamboo Pack members, pre-order this book. There will be a link to it in the show notes today. It will be released in May of this year. I've got mine on pre-order. Joe was so kind enough to send me a digital copy already that I've gone through, but I want a hard copy for my library so I can take notes in margins. So please pre-order this, and we'll talk more about that. Joe is the founder of the BossBetter Leadership Academy, and he hosts the popular BossBetter Now podcast. This is cool. He was recently named by SHRM as a can't-miss show for leaders, along with other podcasts from Brene and the Harvard Business Review. He's at the top level stuff right there. Joe is in demand as a keynote speaker and has taught leadership courses at 2 major universities and previously managed training at one of the largest healthcare systems in this country. He has appeared as an expert in multiple media outlets, including Forbes, the International Business Times. He's on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and on Good Morning America. Great stuff, man. He is available for live or pre-recorded interviews as a source for comment or commentary. Whoa, that's good stuff, my friend. Joe, my new friend, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Man, Brian, thank you for the absolutely stellar introduction. I want to play that back for my kids, right, and all the kids in high school that make fun of me, right? Say, hey, this guy thinks I'm a big deal. Check this out.
All I did was read your accolades, Joe. You did the work, man.
Oh, man. Well, really, what a warm welcome, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much.
All the way from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we were just talking earlier, Bamboo Pack, we just got hit with a snowstorm up here in the northern parts of Michigan. I don't even know. I haven't even ventured outside. I let my dog out. He stepped about 3 feet off the porch and did his business and came back in. So he sunk right below the snow level. And Joe said, we don't have any snow in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. So I might have to go south and visit him to get warm this weekend.
And I'm one of those people, Brian, that I like give me 2 big ripper snowstorms every winter. I like it. I let it all land at once, leave it on the ground for a while, and then it can go away. I like having 4 seasons, and we haven't had that kind of a snowstorm here this year.
That's what you said. And I agree with you. I think there's something about a snowstorm that brings people together for a moment. And like you said before we started recording, it's cozy.
Yes. There's something special about being stuck inside. Now, other people may disagree with that after the pandemic, but I still like a good, maybe a 3-day weekend where you kind of just have to stay home and stay warm. There's fun in that.
I couldn't agree more. No, Joe, we're going to get to your book here today. And I'm really excited to share this with the audience. And I know many of them are going to think, well, why do I have to wait till May 9th? That's the process of publishing books, folks.
Right.
This is going to be well worth it. And the material in this is not, when you look at it, a lot of business people out there are going to relate to this and go, wow. But I want to share with you, before we talk about the book and go through and learn a little bit about Joe, so many of the lessons of business and leadership and employment and things of that nature, they can be transcribed over to how you live your personal life, how you raise your children, how you run your family. So whether you are a business person or not, this material is dead on target for you. So, but before we get into all that, I'd like to share with the Bamboo Pack a little bit about who you are, Joe. So can you please share with us a little bit about yourself, your childhood, your upbringing, who or what inspired you? You tell us what you want to tell us.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I am about to turn 46 years old this week on Saturday. And at 46 years old, I feel like I'm in the prime of my life. And everything that I've done in one way or another seems to contribute to being able to live this sort of life of my dreams that I'm living right now. I'm married to my best friend and the finest human being I've ever met. Her name is Jessica. We have 3 beautiful, amazing kids. I have a daughter, Lily, who is 13. My son, Miles, is 10. And then I have another son, Henry, who is 6. And I originally thought I was going to be on Broadway, Brian. I left high school having figured out that I could sing a little and having fallen in love with being on stage. And so I went and got a 4-year degree in music, in voice, because I either wanted to perform or I wanted to teach high school music. And I ended up and still do a lot of performing, but it's not really the professional path that I took. After I graduated from college, I had also fallen in love with leadership development and student affairs on college campuses. And I ended up having this 10-year career in higher education, where I was designing and delivering programming for students and for faculty and parents, and doing a lot of student affairs work. And then I ended up moving into that same kind of work in a healthcare environment in the human resources world, where I was designing and delivering leadership development programs. And so all of that kind of bakes in the pie together to bring me to the moment that I'm in now as a professional speaker and trainer. It's funny when some people will say, aren't you sad that you're not using your music degree anymore? And I'll say, I'm using it every day, because the nature of training and speaking requires rhythm and cadence, and it's performing. I'm on a stage every day. And at the same time, I have fallen in love with understanding what makes people tick and how to create the conditions at work that lead them to thrive. So it's all baked in the pie to bring me to where I'm at today.
Well, you had said something earlier. You had said, I wanted to either perform or teach high school music. Well, when you look at that, you are performing and you're teaching. The content is irrelevant. You're doing both of those right now. I think that's powerful.
That's exactly right.
That's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let me give a shout out to Jessica, Lily, Miles, and Henry right now for being a part of your life and helping you groom even as an adult, and for being married to your best friend and the greatest human being you've ever met. Man, that's got to help mold you. And of course, raising children molds us, and they've done a fine job of molding the Joe Mull I've gotten to know over the past few weeks here. So I just want to give a shout out to them, because they definitely deserve it.
They absolutely do. And I'm going to pass that along, and I'm going to play this for them. And thank you for that, Brian. That's meaningful.
No, Joe, what you're going to play for them is my introduction of you. Over and over. It's going to be on a running loop in your house.
We're definitely going to listen to the first 10 minutes of the episode so that they can hear about me, and then they can get their shout out from you.
All right. So, Joe, what an interesting path you've taken. You wanted to perform on Broadway. You're trained for singing and music. You're obviously using both of those skill sets very, very, very effectively. So becoming this man that you are today, soon to be 46 on Saturday, what or who inspired you as a young person?
Well, the first person that really had a significant impact on my life, of course, are my family. And, my mother and my sister and I are especially close. My mother grew up with a love of reading. My grandmother was an aspiring novelist and a published poet. And so there's some real legacy here in the fact that you fast forward a couple of decades and I'm an author, and there's something really special about that in terms of the legacy that was rooted in my grandmother and eventually my mother, who just had a love of learning and education and books. And so it really taught me to love those things as well. And then in high school, I had a teacher. I think we all have that one teacher, right, that we can point back to and say, boy, that was a real special person in my life. And her name is Esther Spadero, and she was the high school music teacher where I went to school, and, just saw in me some talent and something special, and really encouraged me and supported me and taught me, and really at a time where I struggled, right? And in middle school and in high school, I was very small and very smart, and that can be a brutal combination. And you end up getting picked on a lot when you make that combination. And so I had a hard time in school, and the arts were a safe place to come and to be encouraged. And that gave me a lot of confidence, and it really encouraged me to pursue things that really aligned with my talents. And then coming out of school, I've met so many folks along the way who have been mentors and advisors and close friends. I would say that the other thing that has shaped me more than anything else has been my involvement in the National Speakers Association, which is a community of people who aspire to lift the world with their words and to impact people in a positive way. And this community is really known for abundant generosity, right? We don't compete with each other. The belief is that the pie is big enough for us all to be successful. And so it's a community of speakers, coaches, consultants, trainers, and authors that really lift each other up and share information with each other, share resources. And, I'm living a life right now that I couldn't have imagined even just a couple of years ago, in large part because of the generosity of that community.
Wow, that's great. It's just listening to you, Joe. I love it. Your voice has that cadence that you can tell you were such a trained. It really does. It's really powerful. And I can see why you were such an effective communicator and speaker. And from what I see in Employalty, that transfers to the written word as well. And I believe that. I believe when a person's a good communicator vocally, they're oftentimes good authors and writers as well, or sometimes vice versa.
Well, thank you, man. That really means a lot. And you hit on something that I tell other folks when they want to do any kind of speaking, whether it's I want to do it as a professional or I just need to get better in front of people because of my job. How do I do that? And the secret sauce really is storytelling. Stories are the connective tissue between the ideas and the messages that we want to convey to people. They're the things that people remember the most, and they are what captivate us. And so whether we are speaking in front of a room or writing in a book, if we can tell stories and find the color inside of the lessons that we're trying to teach and using stories to bring color to them, it can make us all effective. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're quite welcome, and I couldn't agree with you more. So I want to jump into the book, but I want to ask you something because you've been, we're in that same age range. I'm a little older than you by almost 10 years, but we're still Gen Xers, right?
We're still young and viral, my friend.
Joe, it's so great. And the Bamboo Pack audience might be, by the time this airs, they might have heard this episode. But I was telling you prior to the recording today that yesterday I had the pleasure of doing a podcast with Marian Volkman, who is a facilitator of metapsychology out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And she is in her mid-70s. And near the end of the episode, she said, Brian, I have realized right now that I'm in the prime and peak of my life. And I'm loving what I'm doing far more than I ever have. I'm more creative and productive than any time in my life. And what just an eye-opening, hope-filled, content and message she carried. I just love that. So we are in the prime. I don't even know if we've reached our prime yet, Joe. Come on, we're Gen Xers. We're not even baby. We got we got 30 years of this left, at least.
Absolutely. The arrow is pointing up. The trajectory is ascending. No question. I think if you would have asked me a couple of years ago, where will you be or what will you think about your life and career when you get into the backside of your 40s, I would think, oh, that's old. But oh my goodness, it's not even close.
Not even close. So I have a question for you. As we've gotten to this stage, over the last, I'm going to say 1 to 3 years, can you share with us what has been your greatest learning? As you've been working on this book, you've been growing your business exponentially. What has been your greatest learning?
My greatest learning. There are a couple of ideas that rise to the fore for me. The first is that perfection is the enemy of done. This is a lesson that I have heard repeatedly through my life and that I continue to have to remember and apply. And that is that I am a bit of a perfectionist. And so sometimes I will overthink, overanalyze, overwork on something when, you know what? 80% of perfect is still great. And being able to put things out into the world, whether it's a blog post or whether it's a project at the house with the kids or whether it's planning a trip or whether it's a chapter in a book that I'm writing, that you never really get to perfect, right? Perfect is sort of an imaginary destination, and that it sometimes handcuffs us on the journey to progress and on the journey of being of service to others. To whatever audience you serve. And so I've definitely learned that perfection is the enemy of done. And if we can overcome our own perfectionism, we can obviously be of more service to folks, I think. The second lesson is that, and I think we've all heard this, but it's something that I have to constantly tell myself, and that is that comparison is the thief of joy. And when I say that, I don't mean that I have to tell myself that because I experience envy. I don't experience a lot of looking at what others have or what others do and think, oh, I wish I had that or I want that. It's really more about sometimes getting consumed by all the things I think I'm supposed to be doing. You know, when you are a business owner, when you are a speaker, when you're an author, when you are trying to grow a following and a platform and be of service to others, it's really easy to be consumed by all of the things that you're supposed to be doing. And for me, who is a bit of a perfectionist, I go, oh, there's 15 things I'm supposed to do to launch this book into the world. Well, we have to do all 15. And the truth is that's not true. And if I constantly compare myself to what everybody else is doing or all the things I'm supposed to be doing, I don't get to enjoy the ride. And that is a really important piece to me that I'm still very much a work in progress on.
You know what's so interesting, and I think this happens a lot, Joe, in the universe and the cosmos. This morning I was reading a book called The Good Money Revolution by Derek Kinney, and he was a guest on my podcast several months ago, and that he wrote that in the chapter I read today. Comparison is that right? Comparison is the thief of joy. Yep. Isn't that crazy? Because I was just sitting here, I read that, and I read some book on some material on Stoicism this morning, and I'm thinking, okay, I know it was one of those books that I heard it this morning, and it was The Good Money Revolution. Good Money Revolution by Derek Kinney. That's amazing. You said something just after that. Oh, enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
I just love taking notes because every time I'm in a podcast and I'm interviewing somebody, it's a classroom for me, and I'm a student sitting in the chair, and I'm looking up at the chalkboard right now. So let's dive in to your new book. And again, Bamboo Pack members, there will be a link below. Click on it. You can pre-order now on Amazon. I've got mine on pre-order. I've got my digital copy here, but I really want you to consider this, whether or not you are a leader, manager, an employee in a company. Well, most of us are one of those, but if you're a stay-at-home parent or even, a college student, pick this book up. You're going to get wisdom beyond what you can possibly imagine. So I really want you to consider, and like I always tell people, if this is a book you're extremely interested in, but you just say, Brian, right now we don't have an extra $1 at the end of the month, to reach out to me. I will get a copy in your hands. So let's start, Joe. All right. So when I saw the title first off, Employalty, it sounds like it's about employee loyalty, but that's not what it is. Can you explain to us what you mean by Employalty and just start with that process?
Absolutely. So Employalty is a word that I made up as a way to capture some of the work that I've been doing really for coming up on 20 years now, and to illustrate what we as business owners and leaders and managers need to commit to if we want to get people to join our organization, stay long term, and do great work. And I am playing a little bit of a trick on our readers, admittedly. You are supposed to think, like you did, Brian, that when you see the word Employalty, it's about employee loyalty. But we know that that is actually not something that we can attain without doing some important work first. For so long, the expectation has been that we will pay people and give them employment, and in exchange, we expect them to show up at work every day and give us the highest level of their effort and be completely committed to what we do here. And if you've been leading people for more than 10 minutes, you know it hasn't worked that way for a long time. And so Employalty is actually a portmanteau of the words employer loyalty and humanity, because right now, it is harder than ever before to find and keep devoted employees. And that's due in part to a massive recalibration that's taking place around how work fits into people's lives. But also, most leaders and business owners still don't know what turns ordinary people into extraordinary employees. What we know is that the era of trying to find the best person for the job is over in terms of how work is working right now. What we have to do to find and keep devoted employees is create the best job for the person. And after so much turmoil over the last decade, after so much overwork and people being underpaid and jobs encroaching into every corner of our lives, what we have to do now, if we want people to join, stay, care, and try, is create a more humane employee experience, one that prioritizes quality of life for people across our organization. That's at the heart of the message of Employalty. What do I need to do as a business owner or as a leader to create the conditions at work that activate commitment while prioritizing quality of life?
That was so much packed in there. That was great. So I want to undress that just a bit. You said stay something try.
Yes.
You want me
to give that to you again?
Yeah, please.
Really at the heart of what most business owners and leaders are trying to do right now when it comes to employees is get them to join, stay, care, and try. So join and stay is about attracting talent and retaining talent, right? Getting people to look at our organization when we have open positions and say, that's something I want to do, or that's an organization I want to be a part of. And then when they get here, what do we need to do to get them to stay? How do we make sure that our opportunity in our organization remains more attractive, more appealing, and a better fit than something else that might be out there that might catch their eye? But it's not enough just to get people to join and stay. We also need them to care and try. We need them to be emotionally and psychologically committed to the work that they're doing in their role, to the mission of the organization, to the people that we serve, and to the people that work alongside of them. So join, stay, care, and try really is at the heart of the commitment journey that we're looking for from people. But it starts with us committing to them and to providing for them an employee experience that enhances their quality of life.
I love that. Employee experience that enhances the quality of their quality of life. Now, do you see, when did that shift change, Joe, from your perspective? Before, obviously, there's been multiple changes and shifts in employment, but when did that mantra or that necessity change in our country?
It's been a bit of a slow burn that suddenly accelerated in recent years. So I'm big on data. One of the things that we did with this book was we analyzed more than 200 research studies and articles on why people quit or take a new job or stay long-term with an organization. And we also looked at decades of trends around hiring and quitting as documented, for example, here in the U.S. by the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Department of Labor. And we can see a real shift that took place after the last recession here in the U.S. So I'm going to talk specifically about the United States here, but know that many of the patterns I'm describing for the U.S. are also in place in nearly every other developed nation on earth. And that is that in the mid-2000s, as we came out of the Great Recession, we saw, as we got our economic feet under us, a spike in the number of people who voluntarily changed jobs. So in 2009, 27 million people voluntarily left their employer. And that number does not include terminations. It does not include retirements. And then in 2010, it went up to 29 million people in the US. And then the next year, it went up by another 2 million people. And then the next year, it went up by another 2 million people. And from 2009 until this past year, Brian, the number of people who voluntarily left their employer more than doubled. It went from 27 million people here in the U.S. to more than 50 million people last year, with the only hiccup, the only dip taking place in a couple of months in the middle of 2020. And we all know what happened there.
Right.
What's interesting about that is that the data also tells us that in that exact same period of time, there was more hiring than there was quitting. So here's at the heart of what people are misunderstanding about what's going on in the workplace right now. We've all heard about the Great Resignation, right, which is this rise of people quitting. Well, what's really happening isn't that people are quitting, it's that they're switching. And it's not something that started 2 years ago, it started 12 years ago. So the Great Resignation isn't an event, it's an era. And what people are doing isn't just switching, they're upgrading. And when you ask people, when you look at the data, and when you ask people, why are you switching? What are you looking for? You hear things like, I need to get a better paycheck. I need to earn more, or I want a better commute, or I want to be able to have better work-life balance, or I want a better boss, or I want more fulfilling work. They'll give you a dozen different kinds of reasons about something that to me rolls up to this umbrella notion of quality of life. We know that for the better part of the past 2 decades, the amount of work that each person owns in their job has increased exponentially. This is especially true for managers. We know that the amount of hours per week that we work has gone up. We know that burnout in the workplace has gone up. All of these things were at an all-time high before anybody ever heard of the coronavirus. And so what's happening now has been a slow burn. It's a reaction to people saying, enough. I do not want my life to be entirely about my work. I need my work to fit into the life that I want to live. And so that's what we're seeing in the workplace right now. When people are looking for new opportunities, they're looking for opportunities to upgrade.
Okay. So what really, because I hear this a lot, Joe, from my clients, they're struggling to find quality, talented people to fit the roles. I have one particular company that does a really good job of bringing someone in, and they will find a place for that person. They'll try different positions until they find the one where they find their place in the circle. But I do hear this across the country, even over in Europe with a couple of clients I'm now working with, is we're struggling with people. And really, they're looking at it from what I'm hearing today for the most part. And my eyes are being opened right now. We're talking about, okay, what's wrong out there? But really, we have to look inward and say, what can we do to provide a better quality work environment? People want to join, stay, care, and try, so that while working here and being a part of our team, we can improve their quality of life. So we have to look inward, really.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head at one of the big challenges that I state out loud to audiences, especially when I'm invited to be a keynote speaker at a conference or at an event. I like to talk about the myths that we continue to adhere to around why it is so hard to attract and retain talent. And one of the myths that gets bandied about often is this idea that nobody wants to work anymore. You've probably heard that expression, right? It actually became a meme a couple of years ago when organizations or businesses were struggling to find people. They were putting it on signs on their door or on their posts on social media. And there's a researcher in Canada, Brian, who actually found that this is perhaps the most established, longest running generational trope in human history. He found examples of the idea that no one wants to work anymore going back in newspapers more than 120 years. So the idea that no one wants to work is not rooted in any data in most places. So here again, I'm going to talk a little bit about the U.S. Right now, unemployment is below 4% in the U.S. There's only been 3 months in the last 50 years when it is lower than it is right now. There is not an invisible mass of people sitting on the sidelines who have decided that they just don't want to work. This assertion that nobody wants to work is an assertion without evidence. It's complete bunk. We really want this to be the story, that the reason I can't fill positions in my company is because of a mass of lazy people, or that there's a generational problem with work ethic. The truth isn't that nobody wants to work. It's that nobody wants to work for you because your jobs aren't paying enough, or they aren't creating enough flexibility, or they're requiring things from people that cost them in their lives things that they're no longer willing to part with. So when we stop blaming people, we can turn the mirror inward and start fixing work, which is really the path to getting people interested in our positions, in our company, and getting them to join, stay, care, and try. What I've been telling people, Brian, is there is no staffing shortage. There's a great job shortage. If you want people to join your organization, you have to answer the question, how do we make this place the very best place to be a blank, a plumber, a waiter, an engineer, a healthcare worker? That question unlocks a path to solving the right problems around staffing.
Wow. I sit here and I'm thinking to myself, and I hear this a lot. Nobody wants to work anymore. This generation of people. And I've even said, well, where are all these people? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, obviously we had some money that was given out during the quarantine, the COVID and the pandemic. But I said that money's not being given out anymore. You can't survive on no income. I mean, you get
right.
They're somewhere. So I always kept my mouth shut for lack of evidence or lack of information, because I didn't know. It seemed like what they were saying was true, but I couldn't believe that what they were saying is true because it made no logical, rational sense. And now you've given me the tool to realize now I get why what they were saying isn't true. Now I get the facts behind the myth of lazy, as you call it. I think I love that term, the myth of lazy.
And there's another piece to this, Brian, and that is that there are more jobs available right now in most places than there are people to fill them. So in the U.S., we've been averaging about 6 to 8 million open jobs over the past couple of years. And we're still adding between 250,000 and 500,000 jobs to the economy every month. And so you go back to those unemployment numbers. If you took every unemployed person in the United States today and put them in a job tomorrow, there would still be 4 million unfilled jobs. And those shortages are especially true in labor positions, in management positions, in hospitality and leisure positions, in education, and in healthcare especially. These are the areas that are struggling. And so it's not just about that great job shortage piece that we're talking about in terms of creating the roles that are most attractive and appealing to people. It's that there literally are not enough people to do all the jobs in the economy. So all of this stuff bakes together into a kind of pie that creates the challenges that we're seeing right now around retention. Then you add two other things to that, if I can go a little deeper. The first is that when the pandemic arrived, it changed how many of us thought about employment because the pandemic made us braver, right? If you think about a job switch prior to the pandemic, that was a major life decision. People would weigh the pros and cons. They'd talk to people in their network. Do I want to make this move? And then COVID arrived and it injected so much instability and uncertainty into the job market for so many people that they then lived with. They lived with that instability and uncertainty for quite a long time. All of a sudden, their risk aversion to a change is much lower. It doesn't feel like a big life change now. It's, I got to eat, I got to feed my family, and I'm burned out, I'm exhausted, and I am tired of this commute or this bad boss or being underpaid. So yeah, I'm going to go over here and try something different. It's an easier lift now for people to consider a job change. And then you add on to that we experienced what the CEO of Microsoft called 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months after the pandemic hit. We all had to learn how to use Zoom. We all had to learn how to do jobs from home or remotely that many of us never would have thought we could have done before. And so all of a sudden, you have entire classifications of jobs that can be done remotely. And so people who used to work in restaurants or used to work in retail, maybe without even a lot of education, can take customer service roles that are phone-based, can take data entry roles that allow them to work from home, roles that didn't even exist just a couple of years ago. So you add all of these things into that pie that we're talking about, and you exist at this moment where so many people have so more opportunities to find a job that's a better fit for their life.
As you were talking, Joe, something that came to my mind is I think your message is a message of hope and control. What I mean by that is obviously, if I'm an employee or a leader, manager in the hiring involved in hiring of a company or staffing a company, I now listen to this and go, okay, I actually have more control than I thought. I definitely have more influence. Because I thought this issue was somewhere out there in the ether where we're just trying to stay alive here, trying to get as many people as we can. We're trying to stick through. It's like throwing spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. This tells me as a business owner, as a leader, as a CEO, or in HR that hey, we can make some changes here in how we attract amazing people to get them to want to join, stay, care, and try. So I think it's a message of hope for a lot of employees to hear that the issue is not that we don't have the people or that people are lazy and don't want to work. They just don't want to work for you. And now we can make our company a place where they want to work for us. I think that's really powerful. I know a lot of this fits so well for all business people, but also for everybody who's in the workforce right now or who is going to join the workforce or who wants to start a business this is a powerful message. I really think what you said was something I'd never heard before. And I've thought about the change in the pandemic and what it's done for us. And I've seen a lot of negative changes because I've seen a lot of the people's emotional health and mental health being, sacrificed and transformed in not such a positive way. But also what you said about the pandemic is it made us braver. And that makes so much sense. Because it really forced people to do things they were maybe thinking of doing or never thought they could do or never thought they ever would do. We had to do it. Necessity is the mother of invention. And that caused a lot of people just to learn new skill sets and realize, hey, I can do this. If I change jobs, it's not the end of the world. I just need to make sure I take care of my family, have a good quality of life, and work at a place that I want to. I think, rocking the boat sometimes can be one hell of a impetus for, next level transformation.
Absolutely. For so many people, the pandemic gave them a glimpse of a work life that they never could have imagined, that maybe they didn't have to commute or that they didn't have to immerse themselves in a toxic environment that was having a negative impact on their mental health. When so many more folks were able to flex schedule or work from home, they saw changes in how they were eating because they were cooking healthier meals at home and not spending as much on junk food out at restaurants. They were having more time to exercise because they got 2 hours of their life back when they didn't have to commute. Or I could take my lunch break and I can go downstairs on my treadmill or walk the dog in my neighborhood. And so we were seeing people go, wow, I can be here to get my kids off the bus, or I'm the primary caregiver to an elderly parent. And that became so much more manageable for me because I was able to have a different kind of adaptable, flexible work schedule. You're absolutely right. It's a message of hope and control, but really at the center of it is it's a message of humanity. How many people truly want work to be the centerpiece of their entire lives? Most people will tell you they want it to complement their lives. I think it's a message that we find success when we make work for all. And I'll tell you a quick story, Brian, of something that really brought this home for me just a couple of months ago. We decided to create a new position here at my little company. And so we were writing the job posting. And I write very intentionally in the job posting, not just about the duties and the tasks and responsibilities that the person would be responsible for, but I write very specifically about who we are as an organization, what our values are, and the kind of employee experience that the candidate can expect if they come to work for us. And so the very first thing in the job description said, because this was a person that was going to be doing some digital content and social media management, we said at the top of the job posting, do you love creating content for and telling stories about people and connection and making a difference in the world? Are you someone who wants to use their talents in these ways? I'm paraphrasing right now, but the third bullet in the job description said, do you want a job that will enhance and complement your life, not take over your life? And so we had a number of other things in this job posting too about our values and about our beliefs and our commitment to diversity and inclusion and equity and belonging. And so I wrote this whole thing up and I sent it to the HR consultant that we use for a couple of things, because I always want to make sure if I'm putting this out in the world that I've put everything in there that needs to be in there. And I asked her, is all of this okay? Is there anything missing? Any feedback before we post it online? And she came back and said, nothing in here is a problem. You didn't miss anything, but let me give you a piece of advice. Delete everything except the tasks and duties and the salary and benefits, because that's the only thing people care about. And based on the work that I've been doing for the past couple of years and the book that I was in the throes of writing, I knew that that wasn't true. And so we posted this position. And in 24 hours, we had 25 world-class candidates from all over the country who applied to this job posting. We had a bullet point in there that said, if you're somebody who loves lunch meetings that are sometimes remote, sometimes in person, and that almost always include the option for outstanding Mexican takeout food, this is a place where you want to work. Like, we really zeroed in on what is the way that this job fits into people's lives? How do we showcase our humanity as people and the fun that we try to have at work, while also letting people know that this is a job that's going to also be adapted to your talents and interests. And we have no problem finding people who were interested in applying to that job. And that's because we were really gunning for making sure it was a position that complemented their life in that way, didn't take it over.
I think that, it reminded me when you were talking, and I don't have it in front of me. I was going to try to pull it up. But when Shackleton was trying to get his expedition going, and he wrote, and I'm not sure if this is myth, legend, or reality, but he wrote the job description. Did you ever see that?
No.
Tell me about it. Let me read this real quickly. So when Shackleton was trying to get his get it at the time, it was a team of men to do this job and explore. He put men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. I mean, and he got all these amazing people to respond. But my point is he was stating reality versus just looking for sailors, people used to using trek dogs or good with equipment. He put on there something creative and talked about the reality of what this journey was going to be, and he attracted all these men. So your description reminded me of the Shackleton Help Wanted ad.
Well, and you hit on a great point, Brian, which is, and this is important to be explicit about, just creating an employee experience that prioritizes quality of life does not mean you're not asking people to do hard things. Right. People are absolutely willing to do hard things when they believe it's worthwhile, when they believe that they're valued and respected, when they believe that that hard work will make a difference in the lives of others. And sometimes how we talk about what we're asking people to do can make all the difference in the world as terms of whether or not somebody wants to be a part of that. There's a story in the book of a healthcare organization in Massachusetts that, like many healthcare organizations, was really struggling to recruit some of the lower wage frontline workers that they need to run their outpatient clinics and sites. And what they did is they assembled a team of people to reinvent the job description and the onboarding process for these folks. It's a fascinating story. I'm so glad I was able to meet these folks and include the story in the book, because what it came down to for them was a reinvention of their job posting. They said, we realized we were pointing to all of the wrong things. They showed me the old job posting, which was what you would expect, right? Looking for someone with minimum of a high school education, experience using Microsoft Office, some experience in a customer service position is required. And they looked at it and they said, actually, we don't need any of those things. What we need is somebody who wants to work in healthcare and who cares about people and is willing to come here and be awesome. We can teach them everything else. And so they changed their job posting to be almost word for word what I said. Do you want to work in healthcare and be of service to people? Join our training program. Again, I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have it in front of me. And we put it in the book, the exact changes that they made. And they got 4 times as many applicants in the first 24 hours of that new position posting than they had when they had posted a job for a month, just by zeroing in on what they really needed and were looking for.
Well, you're going back to some of the, our human needs of what we really want. We want to be loved, understood, respected, and appreciated. And that is so important for us. And when you can draw on that, I mean, primarily what I believe is everything we do in life, every conversation, everything we do in the morning, everything we do during the day, everything we do is based on it. We're trying to be more loved and lovable. We're trying to be better understood. We're trying to be more well respected. We're trying to be better appreciated. And what I'm hearing in everything you say is that's kind of what this is all about. You treat people, give them an environment where they can be loved. Now, I'm not saying romantically loved or loved like family, but hey, they're worthy of love, or they can be understood, and just not their professional life, but their personal life. They can be respected as a human and as a man or a woman, and they can be appreciated. And when you can do that, I mean, that is kind of like people will jump through hoops if you can provide that for them. And like you said, it's not always about they're not doing the easy tasks; they're doing the hard, challenging things as well. And I think this is eye-opening, revolutionary content for so many people who listen to the podcast and so many people out there in this world today. So I have a question. So I'm a business owner, or I'm a leader of a company. I'm a CEO, and I'm listening today. What would you say would be the best advice so that they can turn their company in what you would call a destination workplace? What is some things they could do now or start thinking about?
Well, I will tell you that question I fired off a few minutes ago is a great starting point. Okay. If you're struggling to fill positions, or you have some folks in your organization that you're worried about losing, that question, how do we make this place the very best place to be a blank, should be a trigger to start evaluating what you're already doing well and where you might be falling short. But at the same time, one of the reasons that I wrote this book is because a lot of leaders and business owners don't know where to start. It's not enough to just ask people, hey, what are we doing well? Or are you getting what you need? Because people sometimes, A, don't know how to answer that question. They don't know what they're not getting or what they need. Or B, they may not be willing to tell you, because not everybody feels safe or comfortable sharing that information with their boss or with their employer organization. And so I became convinced that the world needed a blueprint, a framework to get clear on what a more humane employee experience looks like. What's the internal psychological scorecard that every person in every company, in every job on planet Earth is walking around with? And if we can check all the boxes on that scorecard, we dramatically increase the chances that people will join and stay and care and try. And when we check all the boxes on that scorecard, we not only get people to join, stay, and care and try, but when people do that, every metric you care about in your organization goes up, right? Quality, service, customer experience, revenue, reputation, all of it. So there's a huge, capitalistic reason to invest in these conditions. And so I'm going to give you my one sentence answer to how do you do the destination workplace piece. And it's really the framework for the entire book, Brian.
Perfect.
You become a destination workplace when you give people the opportunity to do their ideal job doing meaningful work for a great boss. These are the 3 factors of Employalty that I write about in depth in the book. And they sound almost falsely reductive, don't they? But there are dimensions to each of these. A person's ideal job is a job where they experience generous compensation, and manageable workload, and flexibility around when and where and how they do their work. Because when I have my ideal job in those ways, my job fits into my life like a puzzle piece snapping into place. When my money's right, my workload is right, and I have flexibility, my job doesn't take over my life. That's ideal job. Meaningful work is about what I do and who I do it with. And we know that people find work meaningful when that work serves and gives them purpose, allows them to do work that aligns with their strengths in an environment where they experience belonging. So meaningful work is about purpose, strengths, and belonging. We check those 3 psychological boxes, people's work is meaningful. And then the third factor is great boss. This might be the single most influential factor in the employee experience, the person that's responsible for overseeing my day-to-day work. And you know, Brian, that we have literally dozens of things that we have to get right as leaders before somebody will call us a great boss. But it turns out that the three most important things are often the three areas that we pay the least amount of attention to. It's trust, coaching, and advocacy. Trust. Do I grant and earn trust for my direct reports? Coaching. Do I actually engage in thoughtful coaching conversations with them to access their creativity and insight and give them a sense of autonomy? And advocacy. Do I act in their best interests? Which means, do I care about them as a person? Do I care not just about their job, but also about their career? These are the three. If you want an illustration of it, we put it in the book as a Venn diagram, because these three areas, ideal job, meaningful work, great boss, they work together to create the ideal conditions that spark commitment. And so we call that the Employalty scorecard: ideal job, meaningful work, great boss, with those three dimensions underneath each one.
This is so good. In fact, I want to just stop for a minute. Because some of you are driving out there right now. You're on your treadmill, you're walking, you're hiking. So I want you to capture this. And when you get home, if you're not somewhere, please sit down, go back to the beginning and listen to Joe's wisdom throughout the podcast. But for now, so this can sink in right now, ideal job is compensation, workload, flexibility. Meaningful work, purpose, strengths, and belonging. And great boss is coaching, trust, and advocacy. There we go. That's how you make your place a workplace, a destination workplace. And I know it's not easy, but it's very simple. When you start making this paradigm shift as a leader in your company, as a small business owner or a CEO or someone in HR, this is how you make transformational changes. And the beauty of it is not just for your business. The thing is, you're impacting the lives of multiple families. Can you think about that? This ripple effect, when you make your place a destination workplace, and you provide these check marks on these scorecards, that these internal scorecards that employees have, they go home, they're better family members, they're better friends, they're better in the community, they're better at giving money to charity. What we do at the level we do has an impact down the road and impacts the entire world, not just for today, but for generations and generations to come. This is amazing. And I'm so excited for this book to come out, because I think it's going to be one of those books that my clients, I'm going to be saying, okay, everybody, you're going out and ordering this book. In fact, I'm going to start next week with my clients, pre-order this book, because I work a lot with a lot of leaders, Joe, and a lot of business owners, people who may not be directly involved with hiring in a company, but they definitely have a say in it, and they definitely have a say in the training and development of the individuals there. So once they're in the door, a lot of my clients are taking them and they're trying to train them and work with them, but now from a whole different perspective, a perspective of humanity and quality of life. And quite frankly, as a leader, that's a lot easier. Because you're playing on the things that you also want in your life. You're helping others to gain what you want in life. So I think it's pretty powerful. I know that there's a funny story from when I said to where the book came from and how it came about. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So coincidentally, it involves me being interviewed on a podcast. So about 2 years ago, I was being interviewed on a show, and I don't even remember what show it was. I wish I could go back and listen to it, or maybe not, because what happened was we were talking about my area of expertise, which is commitment in the workplace, and where does it come from? And the host and I had this really rich 30-minute conversation about where commitment comes from. And we talked about all these different angles. If you think about that question, what do you need to do to motivate and inspire people at work? Boy, there are so many things we could talk about, right? And we did. We talked about them all. And at the very end of the podcast, the host said this. He said, "All right, Joe," he said, "thank you so much for the great conversation. Let's get you out of here on this in one sentence. Let's kind of wrap this up and put a bow on it for everybody. In one sentence, where does commitment come from at work?" And I went, well, I don't think I can give it to you in one sentence. As we just talked about, there's so many things we have to get right. And then, Brian, I proceeded to recap our entire conversation in the world's longest run-on sentence. Have you ever had the experience where you start talking and you hear yourself talking and you can't stop talking? So this is what happened to me. on this podcast. And when it was over, I kept thinking about his question in one sentence. Where does commitment come from at work? And it wasn't that the answer that I gave on the podcast was wrong. It's that it wasn't concise, and that bothered me. And I thought, boy, we don't serve leaders and organizations well if we can't give them a very clear, simple framework for the most important things they have to pay attention to. And it does feel at times, doesn't it, as a leader, like you have to memorize a doctoral dissertation's amount of information and research on the things you're supposed to do and get right in order to create an environment at work that leads people to be engaged. And so that was the impetus for me to say, what would my one sentence answer be? And it took me a while to get it, but once I got it, I think I got it. And so now, as you just heard me describe, I can say with conviction that commitment and retention appear when employees get to do their ideal job doing meaningful work for a great boss.
I love that. You know what you just did for me, Joe, in just meeting you a couple of weeks ago, and then, of course, going through your book. And I can't wait to get the hard copy because I'm a book in the hands kind of guy, so I can take notes.
Me too.
Are you? I mean,
yes.
I like to, when I have authors, I like to send a picture later on of their book, or sometimes prior to the podcast if I get a chance to read it, which I normally do. I open a page up and I just send a text picture of the book, and it looks like the inside of a Swiss watch. You know, there's diagrams and arrows, and I've got my highlights. But that's how I retain information, as you do too. But what you just did for me is you made my job simpler. Because my role is not to do what you do. My role is when people are now working with these leaders in a company or things of that nature, I have a framework now. And I can help take my system and my content and say, okay, let's build it around Joe's, because Joe knows what people are looking for. He knows how to make, and that's really the ultimate role of every boss, CEO, small business owner, is to have a talented team of people and to make their place a destination workplace. And now if we can say, hey, this place, I give people here at this organization an ideal job to do meaningful work for a great boss. How simple is that? And everything out there, for all you Bamboo Pack members out there who are in the workforce as a manager, boss, CEO, small business owner, employee, whatever it might be, this is what you're looking for. This is that ticket. This is the answer to some of those questions you've had mulling around in your head over the last 2.5 years. And it's an answer to all those questions when people say, where are all the people who want to work? Why does nobody want to work? Why are people so lazy today? Here's your answer. It's all a myth. Mm-hmm. I love what you said. I think one of the most important things you said was, it's not that they don't want to work. They just don't want to work for you. I love that. I love that. So,
well, and you hit on something a minute ago too, Brian, that is such an important point. It's the most important point, which is when we create these conditions for people at work, we're creating societal change. Yes. Employalty makes work for all, employers, employees, business partners, family members at home. Because how many people do you know who have a job that they dread going to, where work is something they just endure? Imagine the dramatic transformation that takes place when work works for all. The impact on mental health, on physical health, on relationships. When you create an environment where people do their ideal job doing meaningful work for a great boss, you don't just crack the code on commitment. You make this life a better life for the people who are living that experience. And what a beautiful thing. It goes back to the hope and the control that you talked about earlier, because if I as a business owner or as a leader can take this book and use this framework, now I'm not just posting a position and praying that somebody will apply. I have hope because I know what to do differently, and I can control those things. I can take a look at what we're doing around wages and compensation. I can take a look at what we're doing to create a more inclusive environment where people experience belonging. I know I have the instruction manual now. It's why we're so excited that after this book comes out into the world in May, we have already got interest from people like yourself, coaches, trainers, consultants, about creating a certification where you can get certified in this model to teach other organizations, or where an organization themselves can send us some of their human resources or culture folks that we can certify in a train-the-trainer kind of way to actually go deep on this framework in their organization.
Dude, you count me in on that, please.
Yes, sir. You got it.
Man. You know where to reach me. and I know where to reach you. Okay, Joe, I've got a question that I love this question that I ask all of my guests, and it's a fun question. So if I were to fly to Pittsburgh today, and you and I we're going to meet in your house or your office, and I'm going to pull in my time machine, and we're going to get in that time machine. We're going to fly back to that time when you realized that your Broadway dreams were no longer going to come true. You were not going to perform on Broadway. And you're going to sit down with that younger version of Joe Mull, and you're going to talk as I sit back and observe. What would you tell that young man? What piece of advice or words of wisdom would you share with him?
Oh, and you were kind enough to send this question to me ahead of time, and I looked at it and I thought, oh, that'll be fun to talk about. But then I didn't have a very specific insight that rose to the surface. So I'm going to riff off the top of my head, if that's okay.
That's perfectly fine.
Because the first thing that I thought of was I would sit across from this person and I would say, you're going to be okay. You're going to end up doing work that you love. It's going to take you a while to get there. But all of the things that you're going to do are going to end up being essential ingredients in the recipe that creates the life that you will love living. And like we talked about at the beginning of your show here, Brian, the jobs in higher education and in healthcare and the program design roles and the student affairs work and shifting away from a career specifically in music. There are a lot of moments where you make sacrifices and you think to yourself, am I giving something up? But I can go back in time and say, nope, you're just getting on-the-job training for a life that you won't even believe you get to live down the road. So keep doing what you're doing. Go where your talents take you. I think that would be something that I ended up doing, not consciously, right? And I think that would be what I would share with myself.
Okay, so what I want to do is turn around and share this back to the Bamboo Pack subscribers and listeners out there. So any of you out there who are struggling a little bit, maybe you can't find your place in the circle, you feel like you're on that hamster wheel of life, you're going to be okay. You're going to do the work you love. You're going to be doing the work you do will be essential to the ingredients that for you to live the life you want to live. Keep doing what you're doing, and maybe from a different perspective. Maybe try new things, but keep that mindset of I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be the person I'm striving to be. I'm going to live the life that I want to live, and go where your talents take you. Let your talents be the rocket fuel for your life. Yeah. Don't let somebody tell you what your talents are. Don't try to force new talents. You were given something. And so many people, Joe, and I realized this week when I was doing my writing of my introduction to my book. And I realized that as I wrote the introduction, which I did after the book was written, which I think is normal, I guess, I don't know. But I realized that for many years, I didn't think I had deserved the talent that was given. And so many people, I think so many people believe that. But the talent you were given, you know what that is, that thing you're doing. When you're doing it, man, you are just, time flies by. You care about nothing else. You're just doing something you love. You're in the zone. You're in the flow, so to speak. Ride that talent, man. That is powerful, powerful advice, Joe. I mean, everything you've said here is amazing.
Do you have time for one more quick story?
Oh, I do.
So my junior year in college, we did a production of the musical Hair, and I had one of the two lead roles. And this production ended up kind of taking on a life of its own. It's a bit of a longer story, but the short version is that ultimately the widow of one of the authors of the show ended up coming to see the show. And so Hair was written by two guys named James Rado and Jerome Ragney. And Jerome Ragney had passed away, but he wrote the show and he starred in the show on Broadway in the role that I was in.
Okay.
So his wife, his widow, finds out about our production, and she will periodically travel the country and go see different productions of Hair. And so she comes to our show, and we all hear that she's in the audience. And so we go out there and we give it all we've got. And she comes down to visit with the cast after the show, and was just delightful, warm, and so grateful for what we were doing to keep the show alive, and just gave us so much wonderful feedback about the performance. And she's greeting everybody and hugging everybody. And I'm one of the last people that she comes over to see. And now I've just finished playing the role that her husband originated on Broadway. And she looks at me and she says, "You, come here." And she gives me this big hug. And she whispers into my ear, "Don't ever stop doing this." And then I did. I stopped performing as a actor and as a musician. And for a long time, I felt like a failure. I felt like that this trajectory I was on as a performer didn't play out the way that I thought it would. And then through a few twists and turns in my life, I end up where I'm at right now. And a couple of years ago, I realized that she wasn't talking about being an actor or being a musician. She was talking about using my talents to tell stories and to make the world a better place. And so I'm still doing that. And I never stopped. I was just doing it in a different way. And so that message, I think, of follow your talents is so important, because it's allowed me to live a happy professional and personal life. And I think that's really one of the other things that I'm really excited about for this book, is that it's really not just for business owners and leaders. If you're unhappy at work and you don't know why, or if you're early in your career and you're wondering, like, what should I look for that's going to make me happy? Guess what? I feel pretty confident that anybody is going to sleep well and experience professional and personal happiness if they get to do their ideal job doing meaningful work for a great boss.
When you were talking, Joe, and saying that I stopped doing it, my first thought, I wanted to interrupt you and say, no, you didn't. But you did. You came back. I mean, and the thing is, you do a damn good, amazing job at it. You really
Thank you,
do.
brother. That's really nice.
You do, brother. You know, and I want to stop with you for just a minute and just talk to the Bamboo Pack subscribers and listeners out there, because what Joe just said, it was, I think, incredibly powerful. You know, his goal originally was to be on Broadway. You know, he wanted to perform and or teach high school music. But the paths in our lives are not always linear. You don't just go from point A to point B all the time. They are complex and dynamic, and there's not a straight line, man. There's arrows, and you're off track, and you feel like you're not going anywhere. But what Joe did is what I would recommend with everybody else. You might change the actual career or profession or job, but stay true to your purpose. Joe's purpose was not necessarily to teach music or to perform on Broadway. His purpose was to change lives through telling stories and through performing stories and changing and activating people's brains to think on a different level, and to do that through entertainment as well as not just education. So he didn't go off track. His path just was not linear. And I don't know of anybody's path that is linear. We all go off path, but stay true to your purpose. And that, like Joe said earlier, follow your talents, because your talents will definitely dictate your purpose in life. Yeah, this is good stuff, man.
Beautifully said, my friend. Well done.
So, Joe, before we wrap up, I'm going to tell Bamboo Pack listeners again, in the show notes today, there will be a link to Joe's website. Get in there and explore this guy. Explore his team, explore his company, explore his offerings and service. You will not be disappointed. And then click on that book, Employalty, and pre-order it. Get it in your basket so that when it's released May 9th of this year, it's coming right to you. I can't wait to get my hard copy. I can't. Now, I've gone through the digital copy, but I tend to go through them relatively fast and find the highlights that I like and want to talk about in our podcast. But I can't wait to get this book. I've got 2 or 3 podcast guests right now whose books are in pre-order, and I'm sitting there, rubbing my hands together, waiting for the UPS truck to show up. And this is definitely one of them. But Joe, before we wrap up, one final question: is there any question that I didn't ask that I should have, or you wish I would have, or is there any final message you'd like to leave with me and our subscribers and audience?
Oh, goodness. Okay, a couple random thoughts. First, you're an exceptional podcast host, Brian. This was a really enjoyable conversation. Thank you for making this easy and safe and in service to this audience that you've built. This has been a lot of fun, and I want to thank you for that.
Pleasure is mine.
Second, just so that I make sure that I share this, because if people are interested, I would want them to be able to get their hands on it. We know that a lot of organizations may have an interest in using this book as a learning tool. So we actually created a free book club kit that comes with a video from me. It comes with a robust discussion guide, and it comes with an implementation checklist. And so any organization that buys 10 copies or more can get all of those for free. Just email us at hello@joemull.com, and we will send out that free book club kit to anybody who wants it, who gets 10 copies or more. And then last but not least, I just want to encourage everyone out there who, if you're struggling as a leader to find and keep devoted employees, or you're in a job where you're not happy, just reach for the humanity. Reach for the humanity of the people that you're trying to attract to your organization. Reach, if you're struggling at your own job, for the kind of environment that allows you to live the life you want to live. And don't be afraid to run in that direction. It's going to serve you well.
Reach for the humanity. Powerful final statement, my friend. Powerful. Reach for the humanity. And what I was noticing, and I wrote the word humanity and quality of life down so many times in the 2 pages of notes I've taken today. And I can tell just by, having spoken with you a couple of times and getting to know you, you're all about that. And I commend you for that, because this is the stuff that doesn't just change one business or one company or one person's life. It's transformational, man. It's a ripple effect that goes across the globe. And all we talk about in the Bamboo Lab podcast is we want to take ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things to make the world a better place. And you're doing that. And I thank you for that.
Thank you, man. The pleasure has been mine. Thanks for having me today.
You are welcome. So, Bamboo Pack members out there, for the first 10 people who reach out and send a heart letter to us this week, or after the podcast is broadcast, you are going to get a free pre-ordered copy from the Bamboo Lab and from Brian here. That we will have it ready for you, paid for by us, ready to be sent to you on May 9th. So please reach out, send those heart letters, man. We're going to get this thing rolling, man. And I will be talking with every one of my clients and saying, okay, this book's going to be a prerequisite if you're going to be working with the Bamboo Lab, because this is the missing link right here. I believe that, from the struggles my clients are facing, from the struggles employees are facing, the struggles that employers are facing, this is the missing link right here. So Joe Mull, my new friend, and I'm so looking forward to building a relationship with you over the course of the next several decades. I want to thank you for being such a vault of wisdom and such an amazing and inspiring, hope-filled guest on the Bamboo Lab podcast.
I had a blast, man. Thank you so much. It was so great being with you. And I'm absolutely looking forward to those next 10, 20 years. Absolutely, brother.
Let's go 30.
I'm in.
The world needs it. All right. Can I have a few minutes of time with you after we're done recording today?
Absolutely.
Great. Well, I'll just sign off now. All right, Bamboo Pack members and subscribers and listeners out there, I just want to thank you so much for tuning in today. You are what make this podcast work. It's you and the guest. I just ask questions and provide a platform. And I want to thank you for hitting that like button, subscribing, rating, and reviewing us. But most importantly, for sharing us each week with 3 people you care about. This is a podcast here that definitely needs to be shared. Shared with your fellow employees, share with your loved ones, share with your boss, share with your colleagues. Just get this thing out there, man. This is powerful stuff. We're going to talk to you again in a few days, but in the meantime, please get out there and sculpt your life. Get out there and strive to be your best every single day. Get out there and show love and respect for others, but also for yourself. And then also, by all means, live intentionally. Enjoy each moment. Every one of you, I care about you all, I love you all, and I appreciate each and every single one of you.